You think you do everything right. Feed, dress, take to development classes? But there are daily habits you think are harmless that slowly damage your child's brain. Here are 15 things almost all parents do without knowing the consequences. First, you give a tablet during meals so the child eats. The child refuses to eat, and you turn on a cartoon on the tablet. He opens his mouth automatically while watching. Problem solved, the plate is empty, everyone is happy. But you have just formed a dangerous neural link in his brain. When the child eats under a screen, his brain does not register the act of eating. It is fully absorbed by visual stimuli. Satiety signals from the stomach are blocked because attention is grabbed by the content. The child does not learn to tell hunger from fullness, does not form a healthy relationship with food. He eats mechanically as much as you give, not feeling taste or amount. This is a direct path to eating disorders in the future. Overeating, or, on the contrary, a complete lack of interest in food without entertainment. Moreover, such multitasking at an early age harms the development of attention span. The brain learns to do everything on the surface, not to dive into any one process. By school age, such children cannot focus on one task. They constantly need background stimulation. Eating is an important sensory experience where the child learns tastes, textures, and self-regulation. The screen steals this experience completely. If the child does not eat without cartoons, this is not a solution but a worsening of the problem. You must return mindfulness to eating slowly and patiently, but the screen must be removed. Second, you turn on white noise or music all night. The child falls asleep better to white noise or calm music, and you leave it playing all night long, every night. It seems harmless. The sound is quiet. The child sleeps more soundly. But a constant sound background all night keeps the brain from entering the deep sleep phases needed for development and memory consolidation. Even a quiet, monotonous sound creates constant stimulation of the auditory cortex, which needs to rest. The brain cannot fully reboot, process the day's information, or strengthen neural connections. Children who sleep with constant noise wake more often at night in light sleep stages, though this is not outwardly visible. In the morning, they are less rested, more irritable, and learn less well during the day. White noise can be used to fall asleep for the first 15 to 20 minutes, but then it should be turned off to give the brain silence for deep sleep. Constant sound stimulation at night can also lead to dependence. The child cannot fall asleep without that sound and panics in silence. This disrupts the brain's natural ability to self-regulate sleep. Silence at night is not emptiness. It is a necessary condition for healthy brain development. Third, you allow watching fast-changing cartoons up to 3 years. Bright modern cartoons with quick frame changes, every 2 to 3 seconds, loud sounds and rich colors seem interesting to the child. He gets stuck watching. You are glad you found a way to keep him busy for half an hour, but such content literally rewires a small child's brain in a harmful way. Until 3 years, the brain learns to process information from the real world, where things move slowly and are predictable. When a child is bombarded with fast visual stimuli, his brain adapts to this artificial speed. The real world starts to seem boring and slow. Toys are not interesting. Books do not hold attention. Parents speak too slowly. An attention deficit forms not as a diagnosis, but as an acquired trait of perception. The child loses the ability to focus on one thing for long, constantly asks for new stimuli. Studies show children who watched fast cartoons before age 3 have much lower levels of sustained attention by school. If you do give a screen to a small child, choose slow content where the frame changes no more often than once every 10 to 15 seconds, with no loud sounds or bright flashes. But it is better to avoid screens until at least 2 years. Fourth, constantly interrupt his play with directions. The child is absorbed in building a tower of blocks, fully immersed in the process. You come every 3 minutes. Fix your sock, drink some water. Look, what a bird. Let me help. You destroy the state of deep concentration that is needed for the development of the brain's prefrontal cortex. When the child is engaged in independent play, his brain forms neural networks for attention control, planning, and problem solving. Each of your interruptions cuts this process short, does not let him complete a thought or reach the goal on his own. The child learns that concentration is impossible because someone will always interfere. He stops trying to dive deep into a task and waits for external control. By school, such children cannot work on their own, are constantly distracted, and demand help and oversight. They have not formed an internal locus of control or the ability for sustained attention. Learn not to interfere when the child is busy. If he does not ask for help, is not in danger, and is not breaking the rules, step back and let him finish the task himself. This is a crucial skill for future learning and work. Fifth, you don't let them be bored for a minute. The child says, quote, 0, and you at once offer an activity. You turn on a cartoon, take out a new toy, invite them to play. You think that entertaining the child is your duty. In fact, you deprive his brain of a critically important experience. Boredom is not bad. It is a state when the brain is forced to generate its own ideas, find inner resources, create something new. It is in moments of boredom that creativity, imagination, and the ability to think on one's own are born. When a child is bored and there are no ready-made entertainments, he begins to fantasize, make up games, explore the surroundings in new ways. The brain areas that are responsible for creativity and non-standard problem-solving are activated. If you constantly fill every minute with ready-made stimuli, the child's brain does not learn to entertain itself. He becomes a passive consumer of entertainment, unable to generate his own ideas. By adolescence, such children fall into apathy without external stimulation, have no hobbies, interests, or inner drive. Allow the child to be bored. Do not rush to entertain at once. Give time, and he will find for himself what to do. This is a priceless skill. Sixth, you put to bed at different times every day. Today the child fell asleep at 9 p.m., tomorrow at midnight, the day after tomorrow at 10. However it turns out. You think the main thing is that they get the needed number of hours. But an irregular sleep schedule destroys the brain's circadian rhythms, which regulate not only sleep but also hormones, digestion, mood, learning. A child's brain cannot tune to a predictable cycle. It is constantly in a state of jet lag. Melatonin is produced chaotically, cortisol is high, serotonin is unstable. The result? Fussiness, trouble with concentration, memory problems, weakened immunity. Children with an irregular sleep schedule show worse results on cognitive tests, get sick more often, and have more behavioral problems. The brain needs predictability for optimal work. The same bedtime every day, including weekends plus or minus 15 minutes, is a necessary condition for healthy development. Create a bedtime ritual and follow it strictly. The brain will tune to this pattern. Falling asleep will be faster, sleep deeper, mornings easier. This is not pedantry, this is basic brain hygiene for a growing person. Seventh, you solve all his conflicts with other children. On the playground, another child takes your child's toy. You immediately step in, take it back, scold the other child. Your child has a conflict with a peer. You instantly sort it out, not letting them deal with it themselves. It seems you are protecting and helping. In fact, you block the development of critical brain areas responsible for social cognition and emotional regulation. When children sort out conflicts themselves, their brain learns to read others' emotions, predict consequences of actions, find compromises, and control their own impulses. This is hard cognitive work that builds social intelligence. By constantly interfering, you do not let those neural networks form. The child remains socially immature, cannot stand up for himself, cannot reach agreements, cannot understand another point of view. By school age, he has no conflict resolution skills. He is either aggressive or helpless in disputes. Your task is to ensure safety, but not to intervene in every little thing. Give the children a minute to try to solve it themselves. Prompt with words, but do not do it for them. It is hard to watch, but necessary for the development of the social brain. Eighth, you feed only soft-mashed food after a year. The child is 1.5 to 2 years old, and you still give only purees, strained soups, soft porridge. You grind everything in a blender. It seems safer, and he eats better that way. But chewing hard food is not just about food. It is a key stimulus for brain development. The act of chewing boosts blood flow in the head area, improves blood supply to the brain. Jaw muscles are linked to brain areas that control memory, attention, learning. Children who regularly chew hard food show better results on cognitive tests. Moreover, chewing stimulates development of the face and jaw muscles needed for correct sound articulation. Children on a soft diet often have speech delay precisely because of weakness of the speech organs. Chewing also teaches self-regulation. You must work to get food. It builds patience and effort. Soft food does not take work. It forms passivity. After a year, the child needs pieces of fruit, vegetables, meat, bread, things that must be chewed actively. Yes, he will eat slower, may choke, but this is an important stage of development. Give hard food under watch. It is an investment in the brain and speech. Ninth, you don't let the child out in bad weather. Rain, wind, cold. You keep the child at home so they won't get sick, won't freeze, won't get wet. For weeks you sit within four walls because the weather is wrong. But a child's brain critically needs the variety of sensory stimuli that only the natural world gives. Wind on the face, raindrops, the smell of wet earth, the crunch of snow, changing light. All this stimulates the brain's sensory systems, which are not activated in a static home setting. Children who are regularly outdoors in any weather have more developed sensory integration, better coordination, and a richer vocabulary to describe sensations. Lack of natural light, even on cloudy days, disrupts the production of vitamin D and serotonin and affects mood and cognitive function. Home lighting never makes up for it. Physical activity in the fresh air fills the brain with oxygen and improves neuroplasticity. Children who stay at home in bad weather are more irritable, sleep worse, and get sick more often due to weak immunity. Dress them right and take them outside in any weather for at least half an hour. This is not a whim. It is a necessity for a developing brain. 10th, you constantly compare out loud with other children. Look, Masha already speaks in sentences and you are still quiet. Vasya at 2 dresses himself and you can't. You think this motivates, gives a guide. In fact, such comparisons are toxic to the developing brain. The child picks up the message, you are not good enough, others are better than you. Low self-esteem forms, recorded in neural networks as a basic belief about oneself. The brain starts to run in a mode of constant anxiety, fear of not measuring up, of being worse, of disappointing. Chronic stress from comparisons raises cortisol, which literally destroys neurons in the hippocampus, the area responsible for learning and memory. Children who are constantly compared learn worse not because they are dumber, but because their brain is blocked by stress. They avoid new tasks out of fear of failure, do not develop their strengths, fixate on weaknesses. By adolescence, this turns into anxiety disorders, depression, perfectionism, or complete apathy. Every child develops at their own pace. Compare him only with himself yesterday. That's what builds confidence and motivation the right way. 11th, give sweets every day as the norm. Every day after lunch, candy, cookie, juice, yogurt with sugar. It has become a habit. The child waits, you give automatically. But daily sugar consumption in childhood programs the brain for addiction and disrupts its normal development. Sugar triggers a dopamine release in the brain's pleasure center, the same mechanism as in drugs, only weaker. With regular consumption, the brain adapts and demands more for the same effect. Addiction forms at the neurochemical level. The child starts to demand sweets, act up without them, and cannot enjoy normal food. Moreover, glucose and insulin spikes disrupt steady brain function. After sugar, a burst of energy and focus, then a sharp drop. Tiredness, irritability, constant ups and downs instead of a steady energy level. Studies link high sugar intake in childhood to attention and memory problems and a higher risk of ADHD and anxiety disorders. Sweets should be a rare treat, not a daily norm. The brain will thank you for a steady glucose level from complex carbohydrates, not sugar swings. 12th, you turn on the TV in the background, even when no one is watching. The TV runs in the background all day. News, talk shows, series. You don't watch on purpose, just for company, for noise. The child plays on the floor, seems not to pay attention. But a background TV is a disaster for speech and attention development. The The child's brain cannot ignore changing visual and sound stimuli. It is constantly distracted by the screen, even when busy with a toy. This breaks deep play. Every 30 seconds, attention jerks to the TV and back. The quality of play and learning falls disastrously. Moreover, background speech from the TV stops the child from picking out parents' speech and from learning language. His auditory system is overloaded with different voices, music, sounds. He cannot focus on what matters. Children from families with a constantly running TV start to speak later, have a smaller vocabulary, and understand addressed speech worse. Their brain adapts to the chaos of stimuli and loses the ability for selective attention. Turn off the TV when you are not watching on purpose. Silence or live parental speech. That is what the developing brain needs, not informational noise. 13th. You don't allow taking risks and falling. Don't climb, you'll fall. Don't run, you'll get hurt. Don't touch, it's dangerous. You constantly limit physical activity out of fear of injury. The child wants to climb a higher slide, jump off a step, walk on a curb. You forbid it. But moderate physical risk and small falls are critical for brain development. When the child assesses height, distance, their limits and decides, the prefrontal cortex, in charge of planning and risk assessment, develops. When the child falls and learns to tuck, get up, try again, resilience to failure, persistence, confidence form. The vestibular system, stimulated by climbing, tumbling, swings, is directly linked to attention, reading, writing. Children deprived of physical challenges have weak vestibular integration, which shows up at school as trouble with concentration and fine motor skills. Moreover, overprotection shapes an anxious brain that fears new situations and avoids challenges. Allow moderate risk under supervision. This is not irresponsibility, it is a necessity for a bold, adaptive brain. 14th. You speak to him in simplified baby language after 2 years. BB car went. Yum yum eat. Bye bye sleepy. You keep cooing and simplifying language with a 3 or 4-year-old. You think it's clearer for them. In fact, you slow the development of the brain's speech areas. The child's brain is ready to absorb complex grammatical structures, a rich vocabulary, correct pronunciation, but you give it a primitive language. The child hears only simple words and copies them, not developing further. Children who are spoken to in normal language from an early age have vocabularies 3 to 4 times larger than peers from cooing families. These are not just words, they are tools of thought. Poor language means poor thinking, a limited ability to express emotions and understand complex concepts. By school, these children fall behind not because they are less able, but because their language centers were not sufficiently stimulated. Speak to the child normally, use rich sentences, explain the meanings of new words in context, read complex books, discuss serious topics at an accessible level. The brain will take as much as you give. Don't impoverish it with baby talk. 15th. You sit on your phone constantly in his presence. The child plays nearby, you sit on your phone, scrolling the feed, texting, watching videos. You seem to be together, but you are emotionally absent. For the child's developing brain, this is toxic at the level of basic attachment. When the child looks at you and your face is blank, turned to the screen, with no emotion in reply to him, this is called, quote, zero. The child's brain perceives this as rejection, a threat to the bond. He tries to get attention, acts up, does dangerous things, not out of spite, but out of despair. Chronic lack of emotional contact with the parent disrupts the formation of mirror neurons that drive empathy and social understanding. Children of parents who are constantly on phones have more problems with emotional regulation, attachment, and social skills. Moreover, you model the behavior. The child copies your screen dependence, learns that the phone is more important than live contact. By the teen years, this grows into a serious screen addiction you yourself instilled from infancy. Put the phone aside when you are with the child. If needed, set aside time specifically for the device, but time with the child must be quality, with full presence. His brain develops through contact with your face, eyes, emotions. Do not deprive him of this for the feed.